Hey there, this is Cooper Telepathic Bunny Comics. Sorry for the sound. My mic went bye-bye right before the show, and I have a rogue program that seized my mic, and I can't find how to get it back. So I'll have to use the cam mic. It sounds horrible, but that's what we're down to. That's why the delay. I'm not going to give the introductions, just bring them on. So here's Cruel, and here's
Hey,
what's his name?
what's his name?
Yes, it's old what's his name.
Yeah, welcome to the show.
Thank you, thank you.
Anyway, thank
Yeah,
you
thanks
for
for
coming. We are trying to get ourselves together here. But all right, tonight we're talking about Joseph McCarthy. We're talking about yet another person who they history classes and everybody that as we grew up with, there's certain things that were kind of like told to us, kind of like they were cut and dried. You know, Nixon is the corrupt president. McCarthy was a Red Scare. He like hunted people down. The blacklist was a bad thing, and it got a lot of innocent people canceled out of Hollywood, even though a lot of them won Oscars under pseudonyms. I mean, it's just there's like certain things that are kind of a given. The Salem witch trials didn't actually catch any real witches. I mean, on and on and on. What's some that you can think of, Wookie? That
Well,
yeah,
the basically the coining the term McCarthyism as a supposed negative by the left, and people have to
not only
understand
by the left, by everybody. By everybody.
It was started by the Democrats because they had a vendetta against him because he was a Republican. Now you have to understand that the House and Senate were led by Democrats.
Yeah.
And so this was the beginning of what you see now, as far as how people are treated by the opposite party.
Yeah.
And,
I've got one video that I was all the ones I watched today that kind of summed everything up pretty well, and it took me. I can't got back late from visiting my brother, and so I was throwing things together, and then compiling the clips took me a while, and then I uploaded them last minute, and then my mic wouldn't work, so it's been one of those nights. Anyway, so let me play this first clip. I think it kind of gets us into it. I actually had a clip of a actual hearing where he was called out, and they made it this big deal, that this ruined him for all time, and they censored him and everything. But unfortunately, evidently it's not over here, so I can't play that. Anyway, so let me play this first clip. All right, this will get us into it.
Everything you were taught about McCarthyism is wrong, and so is the phrase naming names in front of a Senate. What you think it means is outing people out of hate and hysteria. But here's an inconvenient truth. Joseph McCarthy was right. And what's more, when you're using the term McCarthyism or naming names, you are using government-created propaganda. It's a lie, and this propaganda was created by the Democrats and the State Department. So here I am to clear his name and tell you the absolute truth about that word and the story of McCarthy. If you ask any high school student what it means, likely they'll say, well, it's baseless witch hunts that ruined innocent lives. This is a staple of American high school curriculum, right up there with the Red Scare, the Crucible. It's always framed as this cautionary tale about paranoia, not proof. Well, textbooks paint McCarthy as this reckless bully who whipped up blacklists in Hollywood and torched careers and did it all out of anti-Semitic malice. But I'm going to myth bust that. So hold on to your hats. Here are some things that we are not told about McCarthy. Number one is that he was right. And I'm going to tell you how we know this. He actually did not want to name names. He was smeared by the Democrats and the State Department in collusion. He actually had factual reports and intelligence on which to make his accusations. And he was the victim of multiple character smears, all of which I'm going to tell you the truth about. So let's start with the first one. Get ready, buckle up. First of all, he was right. History has shown that McCarthy was absolutely correct. And there were, in fact, communists infiltrating the U.S. government, specifically the State Department, at the policy level, at the highest levels. Well, how do we know this? Well, the FBI knew it all along, but the public knows because when the Soviet Union fell in the 90s, they gave us proof. This proof is called the Venona decrypts or the Venona files. It is a trove of intercepted Soviet communist communications that the U.S. intelligence had been decoding for years, in fact, for decades. The Venona files revealed that hundreds of Americans were secretly working with or for the Soviet intelligence, many of them inside the U.S. government, including the State Department, the Treasury, and even the White House. Here are some names that were confirmed in the Venona files. Alger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw that Alger Hiss being mentioned in one of those other videos.
Okay, so the Venona files. We'll get into that. Yeah, we'll get into that just in a minute. But yeah,
Yep.
I know.
You know,
imagine
when it comes to imagine, yeah. But when you think about what he's accused of, you know, the whole bullying thing, the unbacked, biased, you know, allegations that didn't have any basis in fact. And what people don't understand is there was McCarthyism and then there was the blacklist. The blacklist in Hollywood was a different entity from McCarthy. It just happened to use what he was doing in Americans, you know, in the government to kind of like cover their activities over here in Hollywood. And but it operated much the same way in that they were looking for people who were part of the Communist Party. And why is that why is that a bad thing? In a free country, why is it a bad thing that you would be part of the Communist Party? Why is you know, we have a free country here. We have free exchange of ideas. So why would it be a bad thing that
communism's great? We love it.
Oh yeah,
right? But well, why in an American society would somebody being connected and or working with the communists a bad thing?
because they were our enemies.
Anyone? Well, I think, you know, I think that communism is actually anathema to a free Western society. I think it's actually incompatible.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
In other words, they can't coexist.
Well, yeah, they couldn't coexist.
It's basically you're either one or the other.
Right. Well, I mean, it's not as if.
Go ahead.
It's not as if communism has caused the death of millions or billions of people or anything like that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the one stark difference between Western civilization at that time and the Eastern Bloc or Russia is that the Western nations were primarily Christian nations. Yeah. And the Russia was more secular. Yeah, at that time they were very strong in that, especially the United States, especially Great Britain, most of Europe. Now, not so much. But, you know, they're making a comeback. But what I'm saying is that you have these stark differences, and the people were, the United States particularly, and probably part of Great Britain, were scared of communism, and then rightly so scared of communism, particularly the Russian communism, because at that time the Chinese weren't that strong. At that time,
Well,
No.
I think when you look at it, when you're talking about what happens when communism enters into a society, every single time that communism has entered into a society, that society has fallen, and it's fallen in a very dramatic way, and eventually, after millions and millions of lives are lost, the whole system collapses. This has happened. Yeah, it's eventually going to. There you go. It's eventually going to happen in China.
Interestingly enough, a pal of mine said this to me years ago. He says, if you look at some of the countries that have tossed out their monarchies, they all fell to communism.
Well, if you look at the philosophy of communism, the philosophy of communism is basically compassion without morality.
Right.
It's basically a couch surfing, nepo babies idea of what society should look like. And that's why it appeals to couch surfing nepo babies. It's why especially appeals to children who are either still in their parents' house or being subsidized by their parents, because they think that's the way the world works. And
are you saying I'm a communist? I bite at home.
Well, are you?
You're a filthy red.
Anyway. Well, I mean, think about it. The whole idea that first that basically everybody works for the same goal, everybody's equal, nobody is better than anybody else. That really appeals to people who are basically have no aspirations. They have no assumptions about the future. They don't believe in exceptionalism.
No.
And it's like the only way I'm going to get a fair shake is if I rip down everybody that's exceptional, everybody that makes more money, everybody that's stronger, and it's Kurt Vonnegut's Harrison Berger wrong. Everybody's got to be equal. We're gonna handicap everybody that's exceptional, so that everybody's on the same level. It's called equity. Okay,
right.
And
diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yeah, that's probably communist.
It is communist. It definitely is communist. It's literally out of the Communist Manifesto. So it's communist. But basically, anytime the people that around McCarthy's era, when the USSR was so powerful and had just taken half of Europe, and that was the understanding was that we are at war, as ideological war as well as a physical.
Yeah.
And McCarthy had the temerity to think that if he pointed it out, that people were going to do something about it. So about the Venona list, let me play something about that.
Hiss, a top State Department official who helped create the United Nations. Harry Dexter White, Assistant Secretary of the U.S. Treasury under FDR. Lachlan Lurie, an advisor to President Roosevelt. Julius and Ethel Rosenberg, who passed atomic secrets to Moscow, one of the more famous cases. Now, the only one here directly named by McCarthy on this list was Harry Dexter White. He was named in the famous 1950s Wheeling speech. He died of a heart attack just a few days after denying under oath that he was a Soviet agent, but that was a lie. He is, in fact, confirmed in the Venona files as a confirmed Soviet source. The others here, Alger Hiss was exposed by Whittaker Chambers, not McCarthy. Lachlan Lurie was part of a broader network of espionage that McCarthy did reference, but he was not specifically focused on him. The Rosenbergs were prosecuted by the Justice Department, not McCarthy, so I should be clear. But all of these validate McCarthy's assertion that there were Soviet spies in the U.S. government. Now, I should point out the FBI knew this all along. The FBI had the Venona transcripts as well as treasure troves of documents, files and files and files. And in fact, we know that they knew this as early as 1942 because they were investigating Oppenheimer, the father of the atomic bomb. We know this, that he had been investigated as a secret party member. Now, why, you might ask, did McCarthy stand on a limb by himself if the FBI knew that what he was saying was correct? Well, partly because the intel that they had was classified. They were still working these files at the time. And partly because they didn't think that McCarthy would need their help. McCarthy wasn't actually doing these investigations himself. He was asking for investigations, which were in fact happening. And there was no way that the FBI at the time could have known that the Democrats were going to attempt to smear McCarthy, which at the time was so unprecedented. And I'm going to show you this. But it is true that by 1950, when the McCarthy hearings began, the president and the State Department had already been given volumes of information proving that Russian spies were working in the State Department, and they did nothing about it, which is another broader question. Why did that happen? This brings me to my point about
they be everywhere.
Okay, so basically, McCarthy said over and over again that if my investigations reveal just one person in the State Department, then it's worth it. If my investigations reveal just one person in the president's cabinet, it was worth it. And that he believed that his cause was righteous, right? Mm-hmm. And so, when you think about whether he was right or not, I mean, history has bore it out by the Soviets' own documents that there was indeed people working for the Soviets, because these were dispatches from agents inside the United States to the Russian government. And after the USSR fell, we got these documents.
Yep.
And so, if anything, McCarthy was way ahead of where everybody else was.
Well, yeah, because McCarthy had access to a document that was about over 100 pages long from I don't know where he got it. I don't know if it was a university or some department in the government, but he had this document, and that's where he based all of his information off of, as far as the quote unquote naming names, because there was names in there. Now, here's the ironic part about that document is that once the Soviet Union fell and their documents were disclosed in 1992, 1993, after the fall of the Soviet Union, that 100 and something page document disappeared, is not part of public record. You can't find it in the National Archives. It's gone, like it didn't exist.
Gosh.
Well, evidently there's digital copies of it, but it's really hard to find.
Yeah, it's very difficult because they don't want it out. But that's basically, that's confirming what the Russian documents are showing.
Well, Yuri Bezmenov,
there's a correlation. Yeah, Yuri Bezmenov
basically said that, we're working in your universities. Yeah. Working in your education system. We're working in your State Department. We're working on all levels.
Yep.
And to basically discourage American exceptionalism and to make the young hate their country, which worked with really worked with the boomer generation. and the Flower Children and those guys.
Well,
They
here's
hated
something very interesting. Here's something very interesting that can connect dots. 1956, good old Nikita Khrushchev made a statement somewhere. I don't think it was not the United Nations. It was somewhere else, but he was quoted as saying, and I remember this as a kid. So he said, "We will take America without firing a shot. We do not have to invade the U.S. We will destroy you from within." Now, what the hell does that tell you?
I have no idea. What
They've
can it
got
mean?
sympathizers and agents here working against the American people, the American way of life.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, the blacklist over in Hollywood. That's another thing.
Yeah.
They basically blacklisted a whole bunch of directors and writers and people like that, and just made a complete total I watched
And
this.
that was
I watched this movie called Trumbo about Dalton Trumbo,
Oh, I've not
and
seen that.
and it was just like oh, how horrible it was. These people were like pushed out of Hollywood and stuff like that, and yet Dalton Trumbo has like 2 Oscars while he was supposedly on the blacklist.
yeah.
And they never stopped using
Was
their
he
scripts.
a director or an actor?
Writer? He was a writer.
A writer.
No,
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I
and they used
remember,
some of his-
I remember back in the 70s when, Glenn Larson came out with Buck Rogers in the 25th Century. There, he had a guest appearance by a guy who hadn't been seen since he was in the movie The Day the Earth Stood Still, because he was blacklisted in Hollywood.
Really?
He played some scientist or professor or something with had really curly hair, and so he gave him a cameo appearance. For I don't know how many, he probably only had a few minutes on the screen, and that was it. But there was I remember there was a big kerfuffle about that.
I wonder
I
what
think-
episode it was.
79 when that came out,
Yeah.
but he was part of the blacklist.
Well, Dalton Trumbo. Yeah, Dalton Trumbo wrote Spartacus, and he also wrote, I think, Only the Brave or something like that. But both of
I've
them
got
won
Spartacus.
Oscars for.
I've got
Yeah, he wrote
Spartacus.
Spartacus.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm
Of
Spartacus.
course you do. But of course you do. But that whole "I am Spartacus" thing was his like shot, that to the blacklist that you think you got us all, but we're all even the people that you think are with you are part of us.
Mhm.
And but everybody,
Right.
the people who talk about it like, oh, it's just him being brave, and everybody standing together in solidarity. Standing together in solidarity, that's communism, my friends. You if you get one, you get all. That's pretty much a communist. That anti-individual.
Right. Yeah.
And so I mean, it's all in his stuff. With Cecil McCarthy, completely right or totally right.
Yep. That's
Well,
that is, yes.
He was uber
Yes.
right.
Okay.
Uber duper, super duper, uber like.
All right. Well, the thing about it is though is that was like the cultural end of it, and but McCarthy is working out the government end of it, and the thing about it is the problem was that it was a circular firing squad,
Yeah.
and he was in the middle of it. He thought they had his back. He thought he was like part of a group that was aiming their rifles in the right direction, the forward-facing direction. But all the rifles were aimed at him.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so when he made these declarations, when he thought he had he thought he had righteousness on his side. He thought he had the GOP was on his side, and he thought he had the government on his side. And the truth of the matter was all of those things were compromised at that point. already.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Too little, too late. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Kind of reminds me of what's going on right now.
yeah.
What are you
It's
mean?
still it's still happening. Still happening. Anyway, so the real dirty trick that they played on McCarthy. Let me play that right quick.
About McCarthy not wanting to name names. This is my second point. Now, the narrative is that he named names before the Senate. But in fact, the truth is that when he was called in for these hearings, he had barely began his presentation when Democratic Senator Scott Lucas demanded that he name names. So McCarthy came prepared with these accusations as only file numbers, anonymous file numbers, case 1, case 2, so on. He had said repeatedly that he was not prepared to name names publicly in front of the TV cameras, but the Democrats pushed him. Here's when he first began his speech, and Senator Lucas said, I want him to name those communists. The senator is privileged to name them all in the Senate, and if those people are not communists, the senator will be protected. He said, all the communists he's going to name, I want to remain here until he names them. So there are many exchanges like this where Democrats push and push and push, and McCarthy repeatedly refuses to name names. He says, I will hand these names over in closed door sessions. That is on the record many times. Here's just one of those times where he says, this is a quote from McCarthy, which you will not find if you look it up on YouTube, but it is in the record. He says, the names are available. The senators may have them if they care for them. I think, however, it would be improper to make the names public until the appropriate Senate committee can meet in executive sessions and get them. I have approximately 81 cases. I do not claim to have any tremendous investigative agency to get the facts, but if I were to give all the names involved, it might leave the wrong impression. If we should label one man a communist when he is not a communist, I think it would be too bad. However, the names are here. I should be glad to abide by the decision of the Senate after it hears the cases. But I think the sensible thing to do would be to have an executive session and have a proper committee go over the whole situation. He didn't want to. We have many exchanges like this where he says over and over, I do not want to do this. And he never claimed to have conducted an investigation himself. He was a senator, not a prosecutor. His aim at showing up for these hearings at all was to ask the Justice Department and the State Department to investigate these things. But once he named names, most of the accused were brought to testify. They denied everything and were promptly cleared by the Democratic-controlled committee, often without further inquiry. Many were never seriously investigated at all. In fact, some just walked free on nothing more than a denial, despite credible questions about their records. So this idea that McCarthy named names, that's a smear. That was a trap that he walked into. He resisted doing so many times. It was the Democrats who demanded that he name names publicly, pressuring him under the guise of transparency, and then turning around and weaponizing that disclosure against them. So they laid the trap. He walked into it. So how many innocent people were dragged in?
Wow. You sure that's not happening right now in our Congress and Senate now?
Oh, you know it is. You know it is.
Nut grabbers.
But the thing that the whole McCarthyism smear is all about is like unbacked allegations. It's like, oh, if you're bringing unbacked allegations, it's a McCarthyism. It's a witch hunt. It's things like that. They keep bringing. McCarthyism's like the modern witch hunt, basically.
They were trying to do that to Doge and all the people with Doge when they were digging into everything.
Yeah, and it's so basically what he was doing was he's a senator. He's not investigating. He's just like it's
presenting the information.
He's presenting the information in this highly and this like slanted committee, which was was stacked with Democrats, and so but every time essentially every time there was like any kind of rebuttal, anytime that somebody was brought before him and they did a denial or whatever, the press would just focus in on that, right? And the press was like, oh, what? It's like the druggest person before the committee, even though it was voluntary, even though they didn't have to show up, it wasn't like a subpoena. They could have contempt of Congress taken against them, but that's toothless anyway. And so every time somebody came before him, it's like, oh, this poor innocent person was drugged before the committee because of Joseph McCarthy, Tail Gunner Joe, dragging him for the committee, and then castigating them. It was like it's all this language you find everywhere. And
Oh yeah.
hey, John, good to see you,
All
man.
right, Joe.
It was like over and over again in the press. I mean, this is really the first wrap-up smear that the press ever did was on McCarthy.
Oh,
And and McCarthy, he just assumed that he was like part of the process. He didn't know that they were setting him up to be the figurehead, the face of it.
Mm-hmm.
That he was being set up to be the ultimate straw man. That this red scare. Ooh,
It's you know what? It's just like communists to do what they did to him.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Oh yeah. Well, i.e., that they basically took care of him in a communist manner, and then said that there's no communists.
Right.
Even though they Yuri Brezhnev said this is our this like straight up what the USSR did to people. This is what the USSR's methodology is, and they used it on Joseph McCarthy. What was he, like she said, he walked into a lot of it. He was very brash.
Yep.
He was very passionate. When he made speeches outside of Congress, he was just, we're going to get all these dirty communists out of government. You
have to understand, he was a World War II veteran. He was a United States Marine. He actually was not eligible for the draft because of his age, and he volunteered.
He was also a lawyer.
Yeah, I think, was he a lawyer or was he a judge at that time?
He might have been a judge at that time. Yeah, he was a judge.
He was a judge, but he didn't have to go, and he volunteered to go.
Yeah.
And
wound up in a bomber.
Yep. Yep.
So, but then he, when he got out, he ran for Congress and became the youngest member of Congress in 38 years old. But he didn't come from politics; he came from outside, so he wasn't political enough to know that he was being set up.
He was just trying to be a good American, and stick up for his country.
Yeah, he just assumed that everybody else had the same passion. Yeah, exactly. He just assumed that everybody else had the same passion that he did. He's elected to Congress in '48, and all this started in 1950. So he was only congressman for 2 years, and then suddenly they stick him on this gigantic committee, and they start putting the mic in his face, the camera on him, and the mic in his face, and he's just like, "Nope, I'm just doing my duty," And what he didn't know is all these politicians around him were just basically like, here's the noose. Here's the noose, Joe. Why don't you step up on that ladder and put your head through, just put your head through this. We won't do anything about, we won't do anything to you. Just stick your head through that noose there and stand on that barrel, and just you're safe. You're safe. We all want the same thing. And then boot.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But his biggest, the one thing he was guilty of, I will give this, the one thing he was guilty of was he was guilty of not noticing how he was being weaponized.
Yep.
because there were warning signs all around him that that these hearings were being weaponized against the anti-communists, against the anti-communist movement,
Right.
and that they had built him up so much that he got really arrogant, and they just basically say, well, Joe, I think this guy over here has communist leanings. You know, he attended a tea party. You know that there was communist at back in 19, such and such. And then he would bring them before the floor, and then he would castigate them, and that's what happened when he got called out. Was he had this soldier in front of him? I forgot the name of the soldier. I had it. That's the clip I had. I was going to upload. But that guy is like, he made an allegation that he was given that this guy had communist leanings, and then the guy had like an alibi for whatever he was told, what Joe was told that he was guilty of, and then said, "How dare you, sir? How dare you?" And then suddenly he's like, see, see how awful McCarthy is, and then they censored him. And he's like one of the first I think it might have been the first congressman to ever be censored. And so they're like, look how horrible he is. Let's censor him, And,
yeah.
And he died at 47, like a few years later. He did.
Yeah,
he looked old, but he really wasn't all that old, really.
He had the bottle.
Yeah, during this, toward the end of the hearings and stuff, he was becoming an alcoholic.
Yeah, he was my age. He was my age.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah, he died too young. But that's their whole MO. I mean, these people are soulless, heartless demons anyway. These career politician pieces of crap, and they like their little fiefdoms that they rule, and they don't want anybody getting in the way, whether they're communist or anything.
Wookie, I'm sorry, but did you call them soulless, heartless demons?
I did.
Isn't that insulting to soulless, heartless demons?
I don't care.
Yeah. You need to apologize to the demons, man.
I don't
You
care.
need to apologize to the demons. I mean, the demons are probably going
cuddly,
like, oh.
Yeah, demons are clutching their pearls. How dare you? How dare you? That's offensive.
Somewhere the screw tape is going like, excuse me? Anyway. If you don't know who Screw Tape is, look him up.
I think was the soldier. Was that the guy that says, "Have you no decency, sir"? Was that that guy? That guy. I saw that earlier.
That was a setup. He was giving bad information about this guy, and he just walked right into it. And then it's like, "How you have no decency, sir?" And
yes, I saw that.
That was the clip that they played over and over and over and over and over again.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, every time
it was evident that there was forces working against him to squelch the anti-communist agenda, and obviously the only ones that would be trying to destroy the anti-communist agenda would be, I don't know, communists. Imagine that.
Well,
no.
well, okay. So let me play this conclusion. It's really wraps it up. Here we go.
Government was actually infiltrated. Anti-communist efforts were not just hysterical, they were founded, and McCarthy had legitimate targets. And again, it wasn't the people himself that he was after. He wanted the government to launch investigations. He wanted to keep the people's names out of it. But now, sadly, when politicians use the term McCarthyism, they just sling around propaganda. This was government propaganda, turning the accuser into the accused. And they invoke McCarthyism as a warning sign against state overreach, which obviously is valid in most contexts, but they ignore the real subversion that did exist. And it's such a useful lie. It lets those in power rewrite history, discredit investigations, and brand their opponents as paranoid fanatics. And even when these opponents are pointing to documented truth. So if we're serious about learning about history, we owe it to ourselves to separate myth from fact and call propaganda by its name. So we shouldn't use these terms: McCarthyism, naming names, even conspiracy theorists. These are things that the government does to subvert our curiosity, and we should reject it. And perhaps we even, instead of McCarthyism, we should use this. Millard Tidings was the guy who started it. We could use Tidingism. I just made that up. I don't know if that works. Is you're trying to subvert real questions. Tidingism. I don't know. You want to use that? Let's start a hashtag. So let me know what you think of this. This is true. I'm trying to myth bust right now, government propaganda. Let me know what you think. Were you taught this in high school? I bet you weren't. And the next time.
What she is basically saying can be applied to the criminal justice system in many ways. It is turning victims into perpetrators and perpetrators into victims.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Well, it's narrative building. It's just narrative building.
Narrative building. Yep.
Unless you think that the GOP is not guilty of this, why is AOC a thing?
The GOP, for the most part, in my opinion, is just going along to get along. I hate that freaking analogy.
Well, why do they stick a mic in Jasmine Crockett's face every time they get a chance?
They need to jam a freaking C4.
Basically, if you see somebody, if they want to discredit something, if they want to put a negative light on it, what they do, and you see this in interviews when the press wants to make something look bad. If there's a shooting or something, and they want to damage 2A, the Second Amendment, what they'll do is they'll go to the shooting site and they'll find the most arrogant, toothless hillbilly they can find and stick a mic in his face and get their sound bite, I don't care, ain't gonna get my guns, I don't, they've been doing this in the South for a long time.
They look for cousin Zeke out there.
You can pull my gun from my dad's hands.
You know where deliverance came from, right? It came from this college professor got stranded on a back road out in Askettle, Georgia somewhere, and some locals helped him get back on the road, and to thank them, he wrote this story that made toothless hillbillies into anal raping monsters.
Oh God!
People just for fun, for sport, and there you go. That's the dangerous toothless hillbilly legend.
All right, now Brian.
Was held up.
What up?
Hail, not Brian.
But I mean, McCarthy was guilty of just there you go. But McCarthy was guilty of just being he was not enough of a politician to understand how he's being manipulated. And he was not enough of a politician to understand that how they were framing what he was saying. And every speech he made, every soundbite he gave them, he was being passionate, he was being honest, he was being truthful, but it came across like he was some raving lunatic, or whatever the guy, the Scarlet Letter, the bishop or whatever that was such a monster. That was written to about the Red Scare, and McCarthy was basically who that based that character on. But they turned him into that caricature, and now it's because of the way they smeared McCarthy, it's he had nothing right to say. He had nothing good to say, and he didn't have a point. Because look, this guy is the one saying it. So, i.e., it invalidates the fact that there might be communists. And
Oh yeah.
so what do you think about that?
I'd say we're screwed
Okay,
right
well,
now.
thank you for that erudite.
Yeah. We
All right.
might be in trouble.
Yeah.
Might be in trouble.
Yeah.
Just leave
Well,
it.
we're up to our eyeballs in red infiltration. Certainly, our school systems are gone. At
Oh, yeah.
this
Oh,
point,
gosh,
if
yeah.
I had a kid, I would take them completely out of the school system.
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, even the schools that have good teachers in them, the upper echelon is completely corrupted. I mean, we had this local school board, and they wanted four. They proposed like four schools, and yet it was voted down. But somehow this one lady who was like basically ran roughshod over everybody else, and somehow made a way to get it. I can't remember what maneuver she did, but we wound up with four high schools in this county because one of our high schools was overcrowding because of influx of illegal immigrants, and then when the immigrant population went elsewhere, we got left with we got a high school that's almost practically empty.
Wow.
Right.
Sitting over there, and all these decisions were made. They kind of like over the people's protestation, and it's just like on every level that corruption is there. I mean, why does schools need a union? I mean, why do teachers need a union?
Right.
So, all right, we'll go ahead and we'll wrap up the show because Wookiee's elsewhere. Evidently, he's not even responding right now. I guess he's eating. I don't know. Anyway, all right. So we have a vote. We have a poll in my chat.
Oh,
I
he's
don't know
gone.
if Wookiee's got one in his. He's gone. Okay. But I have a poll in my chat. I don't know if Wookie has one in his, but if you're in his chat, check it out. See if there is one there.
I don't have one.
You don't have one, yeah. Well, you just show up and look pretty. So there you go.
I tried. Yeah.
Oh well, I have to let me pull this up real quick. Let me hold on.
Yeah, the commies have abducted Wookiee. I'm sure they have, not Brian. Oh, he's back. They've let him go.
Hey.
Or maybe the commies have got
wait.
Abby. That's why he's not here today. Commies and Commifornia. Are you there, Wookiee? Are you
I'm
back?
having technical issues over here, and this stupid. I don't know what the heck. I heard the intro again over my loudspeaker.
The commie gremlins have got you.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a gram. It's a gram.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I've got 3 votes. Somebody in my chat said debunked.
Okay.
What the hell?
I can hear you.
And
barely.
2 confirmed, 1 debunked. Okay. All
Wait a
right.
minute.
So we'll close that out.
You know, there are those who would say debunked. No, sorry. There are those who would say confirmed and those who would say who are wrong.
Yeah, there you go.
I was getting tongue tied.
Somebody's being contrarian. I don't know. Maybe Time Prophet slept by. I don't know. He wouldn't be in my
We
chat.
haven't seen him for a while. Where's he at? Where's he at?
Probably kicking puppies somewhere. I don't know. Anyway, so Do you have a chat, Wookie? Do you have a poll in your
Yeah,
chat?
let me check. I don't think anybody's. Yeah, nobody. Hey, not Brian. You're in my chat. Vote on the chat, please, about the Joseph McCarthy thing, please.
Come on, do it.
Yeah, I had more in my
Come on.
chat today than yours. That's surprising. That's surprising.
Okay,
Maybe
so
they came earlier, and because of our technical difficulties, they took off.
I don't know what I don't know what you guys can hear, but what I'm hearing over my headphones, I'm hearing what you're saying now, the live stuff, and then for some reason, I'm hearing the show start again over my earphones. I've checked both my
Well,
screens.
maybe.
This
Well,
is
did you
crazy.
stop your stream on YouTube?
No, I didn't.
Is it on a loop or something?
No, it's
No,
completely
no.
from the
He
beginning.
he had another window open with YouTube, and he didn't
Is
have
that what
it
it was?
stopped, so it's playing.
Okay, so I paused both my Rumble and my YouTube, and I can still hear it.
Okay, all right.
It's weird. I don't know. It
happens in StreamYard sometimes. Okay, so I'm gonna say confirmed with me. What about you, Cruel?
It definitely seems like it's confirmed, all things considered, doesn't it? I mean, the way that he was calling out the army and the government and how things are these days.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Confirmed.
Okay.
Hell yeah.
What about you, Wookie?
Oh yeah, he found the communists. He had the information. He was just he was pretty much just pacified because the sympathizers in Congress didn't want him to expose their little backdoor deals.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Too little, too late.
So yeah, confirmed. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll definitely I'll say confirmed for me. So that's with the 2 votes for confirmed in my chat, and the one
I got
debunked.
one in my chat confirmed, and that's it. Only one.
That's not Brian. Yes, that's not Brian.
Not Brian.
Yeah.
All righty. So
thank you,
we'll
not Brian.
play this up.
Nice. Well, is Wookie away
Actually,
again?
it says I have 2 votes in mine when I close it out.
Mm-hmm.
But they'd have to both
Maybe
be for
doubled up.
confirmed because confirmed is 100% and there's 0 on the other 2.
Okay. I guess we're going with confirmed today.
Sounds good to me.
So
Sounds
Tell
about
Gunner
right, yeah.
Joe, we salute you, sir. The history has not treated you well, but at least tonight, some of the record got set straight. And I've seen enough videos on YouTube that it seems like it's getting out now that maybe he wasn't the vile, monster that we were told all throughout our schooling that he is.
No, yeah.
So, no idea what I voted on. Okay. Well, thank you, not Brian.
Thank you, not Brian.
Yeah. I mean, when you sit and think about it, now that you're saying this, right, about what you were taught in school, who knows what the hell we've been taught in school and how accurate it is? That's a scary thing.
Well, they say the victor writes the histories, and we were evidently conquered by leftists a few decades ago, or not decades, but about 100 years ago, and they've been writing everything ever since.
There's theories, and I thought there's theories that the Nazis never actually lost World War II.
Yeah,
there's those theories as well. So,
and they were National Socialists.
Yeah, lovely.
Yeah, which is a form of communism. There, anyway. Well, yeah, I think that there's a lot of things that we don't know. That we've had our ideas and our opinions subverted.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know anymore since I started doing this show. I've gotten to where every time I hear a news report, I'm like, okay, cross reference. Let me check this. Let me check against my sources. And
I have a question. I have a question. Does any of this stuff surprise you anymore? Because it does not surprise me at all.
no,
No, it
No, it
doesn't
doesn't.
surprise me either.
No.
well, I mean, McCarthy. I mean, Calvin Coolidge. I mean, the rewriting of history about Woodrow Wilson.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I heard some people talking about how Lincoln was overrated and that Lincoln did a lot of shady shit and probably put us on the road for a lot of this.
Well,
So I mean, we could do it over. It was Lincoln overrated. We could do that very easily. And was Nixon a crook? That's up for
I'm
debate
not
now.
a crook.
Yeah,
Oh,
but
hold on.
why do we know that quote? Because it was like a caricature, and
Yeah,
they played
exactly.
it over and over. But the truth of the matter is it's very possible that Nixon was just set up by the CIA.
another three-letter agency. Who'd have thought?
Another one, yes. Amazing how they keep
You know
setting up.
those three-letter agencies seem to appear a lot in our shows.
They do. They really, really do.
Golly, the shock.
And in fact, we actually have our own playlist of FBI screw ups. So
Right.
anyway, all right, gentlemen. Thank you for coming. Sorry for the mic problems and the
All right.
late start. That is all on me. We'll be more organized next time, and maybe I'll have a co-host to start the show.
On
You know,
time.
when
Yeah, can't
when
think who that
I'm
was.
not able to. Just a thought, but it is what it is. Anyway, thank you all for coming, and we will see you next time. Same cryptid channel, same conspiracy time, and y'all have a
B-Dog.
very good night.
Hello, B-Dog.
Good night,
Bye,
everybody.
B-Dog.
Oh, there's B-Dog. Better late
Good night,
than never.
everybody.
Yeah, this is pretty late, B-Dog.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
All right.
See y'all
See ya.
later.
Bye.